Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out. We just wanted to give you an update from where we are from yesterday. As we had indicated to you yesterday, we had hoped last evening to turn the valve that we installed on Thomaston Avenue in front of the restaurant on last night, and to allow the water to start flowing down to the east end of Waterbury. We have been able to do that. Water starting at 8:30 last night. We began introducing water into that part of the system, and it's been working. Because the system has been empty for several days because of the cold temperatures, we are putting the water in a very controlled fashion at this point, because we want to make sure that we don't blow out the any lines that are that have been empty. So as we start, if we put all the pressure in all at once, we would run the risk of having other breaks along the way. If we do it in a more controlled fashion, we're more likely to get the system filled with water without any significant problems. And Brad will talk to you a little bit more about the specifics and the details of that as we continue to go. The result of that is that some people are starting to see water now. Most people, we would expect, we hope, will have water by this evening. Once the water is through the system, we can then increase the pressure to the system, and people will be up and have that pressure. In the meantime, we are also, as we indicated, going to convert the 12-inch bypass on the gravity line to an 18-inch bypass on the gravity line, which will take the folks who currently have water but not great pressure. They will all get much better pressure, and particularly for St. Mary's Hospital, they will now be able to get sufficient water out of the water system, and they will no longer have to rely on the tanker truck and the pumpers, and so they'll be able to get water throughout the entire facility once we do that, and that should happen without any interruption of service at this point. And before I just call Brad up to give you some of the more technical details on how this is going, I know we had talked about a capital plan that we were looking at to identify or to replace or put in 10 valves that we've found at critical locations. One of the reasons that we're going through this today, and we went through the same problem back in the fall, is because within the system, when there's a leak, we have not been able to isolate it as sufficiently as we should be able to. A lot of these valves aren't working or aren't located in quite the right place. Had we had a valve located anywhere in the area where we put the new valve in on Sunday, this would not have been a problem. We would not have shut down the system to isolate where the leak was. So rather than waiting for the capital project in the next fiscal year, as soon as we get this all stabilized here, I'm going to sit down together with the water department folks and our financial folks, and we are going to make sure that we have identified the 10 key points and that those are the key points. If there's more, we'll look at those as well. But make sure we've identified the key points that need these valves, and then we are going to undertake a program much earlier so that we can get going on that. If we can get these valves installed, I believe that we will have less of an issue like we've had in the last two big breaks where we have to shut down the entire system and then bring the system back. Quite frankly, we've never faced a situation of re-energizing a system the way we're doing it right now. That's why we're trying to be very cautious. We want to make sure that we don't cause any unintended consequences. So, it's a little bit slower than I had hoped yesterday when I spoke to you, but I think it's the right way to go, and we should have everyone able to flush their toilets by this evening, or most people able to flush their toilets by this evening. So with that, I'm going to just ask Brad to come up and kind of talk to you a little bit about the technical pieces of all of this as we move forward. By the way, this is on Frost Road, so this is what an area. It's what?
Just a few minutes ago.
Just a few minutes ago. So as you can see, the water is moving its way up, and the water's coming out. And I don't know if the picture's accurate, but it looks relatively clear at this point. So
it's water. Clear, not clear. Thanks for coming. Like the mayor said, we went live last night. We started feeding the city with two 10-inch mains in an effort to control the pace and the pressure that we're putting into the system. Essentially, the entire system vacated down to the lowest point. Zero water in it, with the exception of what might have been in a couple tanks feeding a couple neighborhoods. We had nothing. So when you give that system time to kind of take a break and relax, you can't just slam it back full. Everything will blow apart, especially some of the age and some of the brittleness of the pipe. It may be an abundance of caution, but I believe it's the correct amount of caution to put towards it We're going to continue to fill until the furthest reaches of our system are full of water. Then we're going to introduce more pressure into the system later on. I believe that's the correct way. Once the tanks begin to fill, we'll be able to add more pressure back into the system, and without taking the risk of putting water hammer into our pipes and into our valves and into the appurtenance that exists. The last thing we want to do now that we've mitigated the big problem is create another big problem that we have to say, oh, well, now we got to shut down because these 3 12-inch mains broke over here, or this, it's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to do it today or any day, really. So that's the approach we're going to take. As the mayor said, we are upgrading the bypass line to the low service. That will happen today. So the people that exist on low service, which is along Naugatuck River, downtown, out towards Hamilton Park, those people will see full pressure today. And that includes St. Mary's, which is a good thing to take them off of the pumper trucks. Hopefully, best case scenario, we are taking samples tomorrow morning, having them to the lab early tomorrow afternoon, which would allow us to get results 24 hours after that. Provided everything is clear, at that point, the 24 or 30 back samples that we are going to send away to the lab, I haven't made a final decision yet, but I'm going to take representative samples from all 3 services, low service and both east side and west side of the city. And once those come back and clear, then we should be good to go. I'm going to let the mayor finish, and if anybody has technical questions for me afterwards, then we can handle that then.
So just two other things. Because the testing won't be completed until Thursday, the water distribution is going to continue tomorrow and Thursday so people can get potable water. We're going to continue to do that. As we're trying to get the schools ramped back up, although I will say schools will also be closed tomorrow since we're not going to have water for food preparation. It becomes an issue. Most of our students get breakfast and lunch, so we're going to end up having to close the schools tomorrow. We'll see where we are by Thursday. But partially because we're trying to get the schools ramped up, and also just as the week goes on and people are back to work, the volunteers are a little bit harder. We're going to have the water distribution just at the stadium, and we're going to today they're at both locations, but starting tomorrow the water distribution will just be at the stadium. And they've told me that so far today the demand is lower than it had been in the last couple of days as well. So